I've been in the business for 15 years here in New York City, selling homes all across the city. And I have heard my share of horror stories. I've not only witnessed them, I've heard it from colleagues, and I'm going to bestow those onto you so that you can avoid making issues before you buy into a condo. These are my 6 issues that you should consider before buying a condo. This video is great for someone that could be a first-time home buyer or someone that's looking to upgrade from one apartment to another apartment, and it can apply to anyone, anywhere in the country. And if you stick around to the end, I will tell you which is the best unit to buy in a building. So first is the perpetual assessment. Let me tell you something. Banks will not finance in a building that has a perpetual assessment. You're asking yourself, what is that? Well, every building, not only does it have to maintain the operation, but it needs to keep a certain amount of reserve cash in case of any emergencies. This helps to mitigate any of the risks, like for example, changing out the rooftop, adding a new boiler. These are very expensive capital costs, and so every building has to keep a certain amount of reserves. But a perpetual assessment means that the building has literally no reserves and has to keep charging on top of your HOA. I'll give you a good story. I was once doing a deal last year in a beautiful condominium in the Lower East Side in New York City. And the building was maybe 30 units and it was 15 years old. The building had no reserves that the board, the condo board, had to do an assessment of a single unit of a 1-bedroom home that was around $1 million. They did an assessment of $80,000. So what does that mean? That means that $80,000 has to come out of your pocket. So what did that do? When they wanted to sell the home, and my client was very excited, they were getting a good deal. When they found out about the $80,000, as a person that can just get by with coming up with 20% of the down payment, coming up with $80,000 extra out of pocket is just not realistic. And of course, we didn't move forward with it. So if your building has no reserves and a perpetual assessment, stay away. Stay far away, don't look back, do not pass go, just stay away. That leads me to my second one. Item number 2 is avoid awkward layouts. You see, a developer tries to squeeze in as much into a apartment to try to sell it for the highest price possible. Today, I'm seeing brand new construction homes that are like maybe 400 square feet, 350 square feet. Come on, guys. Can you live in a box that is just 350 square feet that includes your bathroom, your kitchen, and the living space that you have to sleep and live in? It's crazy. So every square inch matters, especially in a place like New York, where you can pay upwards of $2,000 to $3,000 per square foot. And if some of it is unusable, it makes no sense. So try to avoid awkward layouts. And what do I mean by that? You could have a situation where there's an awkward angle in a unit, or there's a column that is intruding into the living area that you can't either use an area around the column, or the column space is taking up space. And this is very expensive because each space that you can't use, you multiply that by the square footage and the price per square foot, it becomes very expensive. So let's, for example, say that the unusable space becomes, 9 square feet. 9 times 3 equals $27,000 of unusable space that you just paid out of pocket for. Other things that you should try to avoid is long hallways that you can't really do anything with, but it's eating up into your square footage as well. Next is avoid something called a lot line window. So what does lot line window mean? It's very common in especially a place like New York where everything is so tight and compressed. There's a lot of density here. And so what they'll do, developers will build a building. You'll have your street-facing windows, but on this brick wall side, on the side of the wall, they'll put these windows over here. And what that is called lot line window because it's right at the edge of the lot line. This is the lot, and it's right against the lot line. They'll build windows over here. And you walk in, you're like, oh, look at this amazing apartment. Oh, look at this corner. I get windows on one corner and they got windows on the other corner. But the truth is, the lot line window, what that means is that at some point, a unit right next to you, because you're in a city, in a dense city, can build up. And eventually, that building will cover the lot line window. That means you will lose your views on one side, which is detrimental, right? Because you have no idea if it'll be covered or not, and it'll have a negative impact on resale value. So be really sure that you love it enough, and you have to assume that you will lose that window down the road. And this will have a negative impact on resale value. Going into this is that now I've seen apartments in New York City where the apartment that's for sale literally faces onto another building. So you have no windows over here, your window is right over here, and it overlooks into another apartment right next to you. Avoid those apartments. You have no light, no natural light, no privacy, and those homes don't tend to do very well. So avoid them. Next up is the ground floor unit. People are on budgets. New York City is expensive. I get it, but stay away from the ground floor unit. Why? Many of these units face the street. This could be your living room where you're cooking. This could be your bedroom where you're going to sleep. People will look in, especially at nighttime when you leave your lights on. You can easily see from the street what you're doing. So you have no privacy. Additionally, you have the risk of flooding. New York City had some massive flooding last year, and basement units and first floor units had massive flooding. I even remember I saw a unit in the summer of last year, and they had to redo the entire basement and ground floor unit of the interior of the space, and they could not sell the unit. So stay away from the ground floor unit. Before we get into the next video, please take a moment to like and subscribe to this channel. It takes us a lot of time to create this content, and we would appreciate it if you did that. So next up is avoid an apartment that is above a restaurant. So let's say this is a restaurant and your apartment is above it. Avoid that, because not only could it be noisy because people are going in and out, they're playing music, but also you have to consider you may have to deal with smells from cooking downstairs and the really high chance rats and vermin being in the area. This happens a lot, especially in New York City where there is a big rat infestation problem. You will likely have that in your apartment as well. So avoid those apartments that are above a restaurant. Finally, number 6 is the non-warrantable for financing in mixed-use buildings. Since 2008, market collapsed. A big problem for banks is taking on risk. They changed their underwriting procedures, and they generally stay away, especially the traditional banks, they stay away from mixed-use buildings. So it could be a situation where it's half condo, half hotel, or half rental building. And in these kind of buildings, the banks will not finance because that hotel portion or that rental building is really owned by one company or one owner. And in a situation like what happened in 2008, is that if these guys go to default, then who is going to pay for the management and maintenance of the entire building? The responsibility will go on to the condo owners, which could be a huge expense. I've seen this situation where they build 2 different towers, a rental tower and a condo tower, and then in between they have a amenity space like the gym and the pool. That is also non-warrantable for financing. Stay away from these kind of buildings. Let me give an example. About 2 years ago, I sold my client's unit that I helped to buy 10 years ago. They bought a 1-bedroom condo on the top half of the building. The bottom half was the hotel, and they paid $1.3 million for that condo unit. 10 years later, we could not sell the unit. All the homes in that building were dropping in value because a bank will not finance in that building. Your traditional banks like your Chases and your Wells Fargo will not finance in that building. And what that means is that any traditional buyer will walk in, even if they're interested, and they can't get bank financing. They can get financing from more riskier banks, smaller banks, pay a higher interest rate. But why should they? They can go to another building where they don't have to deal with these problems and go and buy there, which means that this building is going to have to keep dropping their price up to a point where a prospective buyer is willing to take on the risk of that situation. So my client bought it for $1.3 million and sold it for $950,000. Huge loss after 10 years of holding onto the home. So stay away from these kind of buildings. So were there any other issues I may have not mentioned? Let me know in the comments below. And if it's a good comment, I will make a video out of it. So now let's talk about the best unit in any building. in my recommendation over the many years I've been working this business is go for the middle of the building, go for a corner unit, because these typically have 2 exposures of windows. These tend to be the premium homes in any building. And from what I've seen, usually developers will focus their energy on making sure that these are the best layouts, most efficient spaces. And these will also tend to be the ones that do well when you resell down the road. Also, another pro tip is try to find a building with low carrying costs. So low taxes and low HOAs. When you combine all these factors together, you have a home run. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think, and I will see you in the next video. If you're thinking about moving to the Big Apple, join our new build club. We will gladly show you all the best homes currently on the market. We use cutting-edge marketing techniques and best-in-class systems to find only the top new construction homes from trusted developers. Reach out to our team today for more information.